About the new CDS. Outgoing Army Chief Bipin Rawat will take charge as India's first Chief of Defence Staff today. Lieutenant General Manoj Mukund Narwane will replace General Rawat as the new Army Chief. Narwane is currently serving as the Vice Chief of the Indian Army. The CDS will function as a sole point of reference for the Defence Minister in matters of warfare and nuclear issues. He'll be a four-star general, head of the Department of Military Affairs, and report to the Defence Minister and for the defence strategy and for all the three armed forces. The Defence Ministry had recently amended Army, Air Force and Navy rules by bringing in a new clause that allows Chief of Defence Staff to serve up to maximum of 65 years of age. My colleague Shreya Dhonial is with us on the broadcast, giving us more perspective. Shreya, as you were pointing out, the historical reluctance has been shed in. The term of General Rawat is going to be defining in many ways because there are still nuances, the power equations of this position that needs to be defined, conventions that need to be set in.
Absolutely, Anusha. And I think, there'll be three big tasks, but let me tell you what the biggest task for the new CDS and the first CDS is going to be. It is going to be sorting out the turf wars between the Indian Army, Navy and Air Force and creating synergy, which right now many people will tell you simply does not exist. Except on matters of pay and pension, the three services hardly ever agree on, on anything. So the big task for the CDS, for the first CDS of the country, will be to ensure synergy, which eventually will lead to the second biggest task for the CDS, which is theatre commands. Now, what are theatre commands? Let me just quickly explain this to our viewers. In any case, I wonder if you've started getting those visuals from the National War Memorial. This is where the farewell ceremony of General Rawat is just about getting underway. The Indian Army, Navy and Air Force together have 17 commands, 7 each for the Army and the Air Force and 3 for the Navy, as compared to just 5 as far as China is concerned and the PLA is concerned. Now, the task ahead for the CDS in the next 5 years or so is going to be reducing these 17 commands into 5 integrated commands. Let me just give you an example of China, since we've spoken about China. China's Western Theatre Command is the one that is in charge of the 4,000-kilometer LAC all the way from Ladakh to Arunachal. While there is one theatre command for China, which means there's an integration of their Air Force and their Army into one command, we have 7 different commands, 4 of the Indian Army and 3 of the Indian Air Force that look at the protection of the entire LAC. So that's what we are talking about. In 2016, the PLA had reorganized its huge manpower into 5 commands, and that is something that India has been looking to do as well. But there has been resistance. As I said, turf wars are very common between the three forces. There has been some degree of reluctance and resistance as far as the Air Force is concerned. But the big task for the CDS is come in the next 3 years, 4 years, is going to be reorganizing the Army into theatre commands. Then, the third big priority, look at where we stand as far as ammunition is concerned. The Indian Army officially has gone to the Government of India, to the Parliament Standing Committee, to say 67% of our equipment is vintage categories in vintage category. And the fact is, we need more of everything. We need more of warships, we need more of submarines, we need more of fighter jets, we need more helicopters, we need more guns, we need more missiles, we need more of everything. But the budget over the last few years has dramatically come down. Anusha, I think that ceremony is just about getting away. Maybe our viewers would like to listen into that.
Those are the live visuals that we are getting from the War Memorial, and the Chief of Army Staff. It's going to be General Bipin Rawat's last day today. So those are the visuals which are coming in from the War Memorial. And Shreya, in just about few seconds, we are beginning the official ceremony to begin. You were pointing out to the fact that 65% of our equipment is vintage. That is what the ammunition, the artillery, that is what is the need of the hour. Modernization of it.
Modernization and prioritizing defense spending given how little we have. So one of the big tasks and the third big major challenge, as I was pointing out for the CDS, is going to be how do you prioritize this budget for the Navy, Army and Air Force, because there are always battles for that limited budget, and that is something that the CDS will need to look at as well. If you have 10, and this is just an example, if you have 10 rupees, what is your number one priority right now? What is it that the three forces need the most right now? And then you prioritize money accordingly. Of course, what I also foresee right now, because the terms of engagement, as you said, will need to be worked out. There will be teething troubles, and the one teething trouble that I do foresee is a bit of a clash with the Defense Secretary, because the Defense Secretary, after all, is the one. He's a civilian bureaucrat, and bureaucrats and men in uniforms have never historically gotten along well. The fact is that it's the Defense Secretary who controls the purse strings. There is some amount of financial power with the CDS as well. But the primary task of the Defense Secretary is procurement, and prioritizing procurement is something that is in the CDS charter as well. So there will need to be, a rejigging of roles, I think, and there will be teething troubles there is what I foresee. Otherwise, if you see the charter for the CDS, it's absolutely huge. It's absolutely huge. You don't know, it will take at least 5 CDSs to complete the charter of works that has been laid down by the government. Of course, General Rawat, the first. What you're seeing on your screens, let me quickly describe that to our viewers as well. These are pictures that are coming to us from the National War Memorial, Anusha. The farewell ceremony of the Chief of Army Staff currently underway, just about getting underway, that is. You'll see a ceremony here. This is where the National War Memorial was built as recently as last year in memory of the 26,000 soldiers who laid down their lives in the line of duty post-independence. This includes our wars with China, Pakistan, all our soldiers who were killed in Sri Lanka as well. Post this, what we will see is the Chief of Army Staff, and he's going to be the Chief of Army Staff for the next couple of hours. He will be going to South Block, which is where his office is. Mind you, as CDS, he will still be coming to this very office every day. I mean, the room has changed, but the location of the office doesn't change. It continues to be the beautiful and iconic South Block. This is where the lawns of the South Block, there will be a Tri-Service Guard of Honor, which is a ceremony to behold. It's one of the most beautiful ceremonies that you will see. So that is something that should be happening, that will be happening at around 9:40, 9:45 as well, post which we are expecting General Bipin Rawat to have a word with the media, not an extensive interview or a question-answer session, but we are expecting him to say a couple of things, as is tradition every time a chief retires. But he's not just retiring, as you're pointing out. He's also taking over as India's first CDS.
Absolutely. An important day. He's retiring today, and as Shreya is pointing out, he's taking as the first CDS of the country, and that is a very important move which is happening today. That will remain our top focus. Let's also have a look at this explainer that my colleague Mahas Siddiqui has brought in on the CDS, what the roles and responsibilities will look like.
Chief of Defence Staff is a 4-star general who will be a senior to the 3 service chiefs. But the 3 service chiefs won't report to the Chief of the Defence Staff. He will be a single-point advisor to the government on matters related to the Army, Navy and the Air Force. He'll be involved in military operations and budgets. And since India is a nuclear-powered state, the Chief of Defence Staff will advise the Prime Minister on nuclear issues.
So we're keeping our focus on this important farewell ceremony of which is happening at the National War Memorial for General Bipin Rawat. He is not only retiring today, but also he will take over as the CDS for the Defence Forces, and that's going to be one of the very important points and an important development which is coming in right now. Shreya has been giving us a lot of perspective on this very important story. Shreya, when we talk about the first CDS for our country, there are so many things that you pointed out, whether it's about the inter-service rivalry, the Defence Secretary versus the CDS. General Rawat's term is going to be defining in many ways. Because he is the first CDS, he'll also set out a lot of power equations. One of the apprehensions which is also expressed is the fact that the 3 chief of the 3 services will not be reporting to him, but yet he will remain an important functionary who will work in consultation with them. He will have direct interactions with them. How is that power equation actually going to work around?
So the armed forces have a strict sense of hierarchy, and given the fact that General Rawat is the senior most when it comes to the current lot of chiefs, and General Naravane will be taking over today as well as the new army chief. So hierarchy-wise, things will not be a problem. The CDS will be a 4-star general, much like the army chief, much like the navy chief, much like the air force chief, but he will be the first amongst equals. That is something that is very clear in the charter that the government of India has put out. However, the 3 chiefs do not, and I repeat, do not report to the CDS. They continue to report to the Raksha Mantri. The CDS, however, will be the military advisor to the Raksha Mantri. But when it comes to individual services, as far as operations are concerned, the 3 chiefs will continue to report.
All right, and we're going to those visuals, Shreya, as we can see General Bipin Rawat right now. All right, so that ceremony is underway. General Bipin Rawat at the National War Memorial. He's going to retire today, and then he also takes over as the Chief of Defence Staff. Let's listen in. So those are the visuals from the National War Memorial. As Shreya was pointing out, in this ceremony, they respect and they pay respects to the soldiers, about 26,000 soldiers who have laid down their life for the country for fighting different wars. The retirement age for the new CDS increased to about 65 years as General Bipin Rawat. This is his last day today as the Chief of Armed Forces of the Army, and then he takes over as the CDS, Chief of Defence Staff, and that will be an important tenure that he's going to begin. And after that, it's going to be Lieutenant General Naravane, who's going to be India's 28th Army Chief. A lot of issues lie under the ambit of the CDS. That is something that everyone is very keenly watching. The government made that announcement, and now that appointment has happened. Shreya is with us on the broadcast, getting his more perspective on that story. Shreya, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the ceremony which is underway right now?
When the Chief of Army Staff retires, there is a string of ceremonials that take place, and this is one of them. Usually on the last day, before the war memorial was built, you had chiefs and other dignitaries when they were, retiring. All right, the ceremony is still underway. Yeah. Anusha, we might want to listen.
Continues to be with us on the broadcast. Shreya, you were pointing out and helping us understand the different ceremonies that happen on this day.
Yes, this is, every time a new chief takes over or when the chief is retiring, the one thing you do is to pay your respects to the soldiers, all the soldiers who have laid down their lives in the line of duty. Tomorrow when General Naravane when it will be General Naravane's first day in office as the army chief, he will be back here as well in the morning. He will be here to pay his obedience, his tribute to the 26,000 men in whose memory the war memorial has been built. Before the war memorial was built, all the service chiefs, all the three service chiefs, in fact, why just the army chief, used to go to the Amar Jawan Jyoti. Now that ceremonial point has become the National War Memorial. This is, once chief is leaving, a month before his retirement, he needs to go to every command to say thank you and bye-bye to all men who have served under him. That is tradition as far as the Indian Army, the Navy and the Air Force is concerned. These are called farewell tours because, once you're retiring from service, a service that you've served in for more than 40 years, you want to say thank you to the people you have worked with. So that is something that had started happening a month ago, and today is the culmination. Today is the culmination of all those farewell ceremonies that we have seen in the last 1 month. This is where the army chief paying tribute to the men who've laid down their lives in the line of duty. Of course, things don't end for him here. He continues to be, closely associated with defense matters. In fact, he'll be heading the Department of the Ministry of the Department of Military Affairs. I beg your pardon. These are terminologies we are still getting used to because this is a new department, the fifth department under the Ministry of Defense that he will be heading now. So he'll be the Secretary of the Department of Military Affairs as well.
Shreya, how was the term like of General Rawat? If you were to look back and look at the key highlights, he took over in 2016. He has a term, quite a decorated officer. Take us through the big key points, the highs of his career as the chief of the army staff.
I still remember one editorial that was written in a newspaper a couple of years ago, which said, "This general talks too much." The fact is that, and I think that is what has defined his term. This is a general, people within the forces, the forces are supposed to be strictly apolitical and strictly secular. You don't have the chiefs of various services come out and speak on civilian matters. And by civilian matters, I mean political matters. But General Rawat has always had an opinion on most things. And he's someone who's not afraid of articulating it. Of course, when he was picked as the Chief of Army Staff exactly 3 years ago, and he served 3 years as the Army Chief, there was a lot of talk about how General Rawat was a political pick, because after all, you do remember that he was picked after 2 senior officers were superseded. I mean, he superseded 2 senior officers to become the Chief of Army Staff, and there was much controversy about that because when it comes to the chiefs, the governments have usually stuck by the principle of seniority. In General Rawat's case, the principle of seniority was discarded. So he was seen as a political pick. We've seen controversies where he's spoken about women in the armed forces in an interview to me as recently as the CCA as well. A lot of people saying, why does an army chief need to articulate views on political matters, etc. But as I said then, as I'm saying now, this is General Rawat we are talking about. He's the new CDS, and you'll hear more from him, not less.
We hope to hear more from him. Shreya, thank you so much for putting that in perspective. At the National War Memorial, that ceremony has completed itself, and as Shreya was pointing out, a new term awaits General Rawat as the new CDS. That will be worth a watch how that term pan out. With that, it's a wrap on this edition, but going with this important reminder that follow CNN News 18 on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. And also remember to follow